It was 11:47 at night when I picked up my son's phone by accident. His notifications were still coming through on our shared family cloud. A message from a number I didn't recognize. It said, "They found the body. You need to get rid of the jacket." I just stood there in my kitchen at midnight, staring at 11 words that were about to end my son's life as I knew it. I froze for a few seconds, like my whole body just stopped working. I want to tell you how a normal Tuesday turned into the worst night of my life, but first you need to understand who my son actually was, because the boy I raised and the man that text message was describing didn't feel like the same person. My son's name is Dylan, 22 years old, good with cars, terrible with money, the kind of kid who still called me mama, like he was 7 years old, even as a grown man, which honestly always made my chest hurt a little, in a good way. He'd had a rough couple of years before that, dropped out of community college, bounced between two jobs he didn't really care about. But about 6 months before that night, something shifted in him. He started disappearing for entire weekends, said he was with friends, new friends, ones I'd never met, never even seen a picture of, even started ghosting my calls. I remember my husband Mark bringing it up over dinner once. He said, "Doesn't it feels like he's hiding something?" And I brushed it off. I told him, "He's 22, Mark. Everybody's hiding something at 22. Looking back now, God, I wish I'd asked more questions. I must have stopped what would turn into a horror that's gonna frighten us for years. There was one night, maybe 2 months before everything happened, when Dylan came home at 4 in the morning, mud all over his boot, a tear in his jacket sleeve. He said he'd gotten into a fight over something stupid, some guy at a bar, and I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my son. But there was one thing that stuck with me, even back then. He wouldn't look me in the eye when he said it. I knew something is not right. So that night, after I read that message, I didn't wake Mark and I didn't wake Dylan. I just sat down at the kitchen table and started scrolling. Message after message. Coded, careful, deliberately vague, but not vague enough. There were references to the spot by the river, references to some guy named Trevor who wasn't going to be a problem anymore. And then, from 3 weeks earlier, a message that just said, "It's done. Don't call me tonight." I felt sick. Actually, physically sick. I remember standing up so fast the chair fell over behind me, and Mark came running down the stairs asking what was wrong, and I couldn't even get the words out. I just handed him the phone. We didn't sleep that night. We sat in the living room until the sun came up, going back and forth on what to do. Do we ask him straight out? Do we call someone? Or do we just pretend we saw nothing and hope, pray, that this was some huge misunderstanding? But I knew they weren't. The next morning, I did something I'm not proud of. I searched his name, just typed Dylan, and our last name into a search engine, half expecting nothing to come up. But there it was, a local news article from 2 days earlier. A man, 24 years old, found dead near a river trail. Police looking for persons of interest. 24, right in that same age range as the friends Dylan had been vanishing with for months. I confronted him that evening. My hands were shaking so badly I had to set my coffee mug down before I spilled it everywhere. I just asked him straight up, "Dylan, who is Trevor?" And for the first time in 22 years, my own son looked at me like he didn't recognize who I was either. He didn't deny it right away. That was the part that broke something in me. If he'd just said, "Mom, what are you even talking about?" I think I could have believed him. Instead, he sat down, slowly, like his legs just gave out on their own. He told me it started as an accident, a fight that went too far. Over money, Trevor supposedly owed some people Dylan had gotten tangled up with. He said he panicked, said he never meant for it to happen. He said a lot of things that night, and I wanted to believe every single one of them. But honestly, I don't know what I believed anymore. What I do know is this. 3 days later, at 6 in the morning, 4 police cars pulled into our driveway. I watched them put my son in handcuffs on the same porch where he used to ride his bike as a little kid. I watched Mark shout his name so loud the neighbors came out onto their lawns. And I watched Dylan turn around just once, right before they put him in the car, and mouth the words, "I'm sorry, Mom." I couldn't control my tears even now when I think about that scene. Here's the part of the story that nobody saw coming, the part that still keeps me up some nights. During the trial, it came out that Trevor wasn't just some guy Dylan owed money to. Trevor had actually been threatening our family for weeks, quietly, through Dylan, because Dylan owed a debt to people way more dangerous than either of them. That fight wasn't random. Trevor was trying to collect by threatening to hurt Mark and me if Dylan didn't pay up. My son didn't just snap over money. He was trying in the worst, most catastrophic way possible to protect his own parents. That doesn't excuse what he did. I need to say that clearly because I've thought about it every single day since. A man is dead. Another family lost their son, just like I nearly lost mine, just in a much more permanent way. This shouldn't have happened. There's no version of this where Dylan is the hero. He got sentenced to 18 years. I visit him every second Saturday. He looks older every single time I see him. Not just aged, older in the eyes, if that makes any sense at all. I wish I could give my years of age to him and die. The last thing he said to me on my most recent visit was, "I keep thinking if I'd just told you the truth that first night, the one with the mud on my boot, none of this happens." And maybe he's right. Maybe if I'd pushed harder, asked one more question, refused to just accept just friends as an answer, things would have gone differently. But that was the fate, I think. But here's what I want you to take from all this, if you're a parent listening right now. Your kid doesn't have to be a bad kid to end up somewhere unthinkable. Sometimes it isn't drugs or bad grades or the friends you warned them to stay away from. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's a son trying so hard to protect you that he ends up destroying himself instead. Ask the hard questions before you end up finding the answers some other way.